Hi guys, this is lesson 2-5 and you can find that on page 103 of your textbook. If you'd like to look through the lesson, the examples are worked out for you. A great way to read a textbook is to look at the example, look at like I'm looking at example 1, it says evaluate m plus the absolute value of m plus 6 minus 14 if m equals 4. Then don't look at the example and just for a minute say, what would I do? How would I solve this? And maybe even try it and see if you can do it without even looking at the example. And then look at the example and see how they've worked it out and see if that gives you some information. Your brain is primed to understand that. And it's just a great way of learning a new lesson. You go to example 2 and it says solve each equation, then graph the solution set, and then ask yourself, can I solve this? The absolute value of f plus 5 equals 17. Can I? And then try it. It's okay if you don't even do it right, but then when you look at the example, you'll be primed to do that. So I would encourage you to look through that. You can maybe try even check your understanding there, numbers 1 through say 12, and I'm guessing that those answers are probably in the book, although I have not looked just yet. I am going to work some problems from page 106 for you and talk about some things that you need to know about this lesson. This lesson is actually called Solving Equations Involving Absolute Value. So we've talked about absolute value a little bit. It came up as a topic that you were ready to learn early in the year, so we kind of started there. And here we are actually just expanding on that a little bit now. So number 13 says the absolute value of 2x plus z plus 2y. And there's nothing to solve here. There's no equal sign, except that it says evaluate the expression if, and it has a value for a, b, c, x, y, and z. So we're going to plug in some numbers here. So we have 2, and then times x is 2.1 plus, there's a number for z, which is negative 4.2. Plus 2 times y, which is 3. All right, so we just need to evaluate this. So we have to use a little order of operations and treat the absolute value sign as if it's parentheses. So 2 times 2.1 is 4.2 plus negative 4.2. Oh, look at that. This is going to be 0, and the absolute value of 0 is just 0. Okay, plus here 2 times 3, which is 6. And then we can add 0 plus 6 is 6. So in those problems, you're just plugging in numbers, practicing your order of operation. If you get them wrong there, that's probably what's happening. Watch out for positives and negatives, and let me know if you have any problems with that. Let's jump to number 22. And it says solve each equation and then graph the solution set. So 22 has the absolute value of n minus 3 equals 5. So what we need to think about when we see this problem is that what is in the absolute value signs, what is inside of those signs, that could be a positive number or a negative number before we actually apply the absolute value signs. Because remember, the absolute value signs just make everything positive. So that 5 you see there could have been a negative 5 or a 5, right? Either one of those would give us a 5. And so n minus 3 could equal 5, right? Or n minus 3 could equal a negative 5. And then we have these absolute value signs, and so the negative 5 would then become this 5 that we're looking at. So when you solve these problems, you have to solve 2 problems. You're going to get 2 answers. you need to set up two problems and actually work them out. So now I have these two little problems. They're not super difficult. I'm going to apply the addition property of equality here and get n equals 8. And that's one answer. And over here, I'm going to do the same property and get n equals -2. And both of these answers, both of these numbers work in this problem. So I actually have a solution set of -2 and 8. Both of those numbers will be solutions to this problem that I was given. Okay, let me solve one more of those. I'll solve one that's not going to work out nicely. Number 27 says the absolute value of 6y minus 7 equals -1. Well, I'm already confused because absolute value never gives us a negative. So we're going, what? So there is nothing over here that could make this answer true. And so we will say that the solution to this is a null set. Okay, there are no solutions to this problem. So that's an example of one that's a little sticky. If you ever see that, number 28 is another one. It equals a negative. Number 24 is another one. It equals a negative. You can't have something in absolute value signs that equals a negative. I have a number line, and I am asked to write an equation involving absolute value. So I see that I have a number marked at -3 here, and then all the way up here I have a number marked at 5. If I were to look for the middle of those two numbers, that would be at the number 1. So you can count that, or you could say, you could average those two numbers. In this case, just look at the number line and find the middle. If I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spaces, I know there has to be 4 on either side. There's 4 here and 4 here. And so my middle number is 1. And so how to set up this problem is I'm going to say that I have the absolute value of a number minus 1, and that's going to equal 4 spaces. What else were we supposed to do? That write an equation involving absolute value for this graph. And so here, what I'm saying is there's something here. The absolute value of is going to be 4. It's either going to be 4 or -4, right? The distance of it is just 4, and x minus 1 is that. So I would solve this. X minus 1 equals 4. X minus 1 equals -4. And so I go plus 1. X equals 5. Here I solve it. Plus 1, x equals -3. And so I've come up with an equation that will solve and get those problems. When you do these, look for the middle number. That's the thing that you're going to subtract. And then look for the distance that the answer is. How much distance is on either side of this number, and that will be this number. Let's follow that and do number 36. I see a number line, and I've got a -6, a dot on -6, and a 2. And so what I'm going to do is look for the middle of that. So from -6 to 2 is 8 spaces. So 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. -2 is what is the middle number. Let's just put it on here. And the distance this way and the distance this way is 4. So what I'm going to say is x take away a -2. The absolute value of that is going to equal 4. So it's going to be plus or minus 4 inside of here. X minus a -2 is just x plus 2. If I want to check that, I get x plus 2 equals 4, and x plus 2 equals -4. So I do the math. X equals 2. That gives me, it's funny how it's always on that side. And then over here, I get x equals -6. Notice that that is that number. Okay, so that's how you work those out. If you look at 33 and 34, because it's 0 right in the middle, we're just going to end up saying x minus 0, the absolute value of that, equals, and then in the case of number 33, there's 4 spaces on either side of the 0, and then so they're not going to keep the -0 part of that. You could, so you just end up with the absolute value of x equals 4. In number 34, we're going to have the absolute value of x equals 6. All right, so I only have this. You are going to see some problems. This is a side note. You're going to see some problems that look something like this in your homework. I don't see any in the actual text lesson at this point, but in your homework you're going to see these. We need to get rid of this +2 first before we can do anything. We need to get this by itself. So we just take care of this first, and then you'll end up with this. Like that. And then you can do like the rest of this. So if there's anything outside of the absolute value signs, I want you to make sure and isolate the absolute value signs. So, quote, get rid of whatever it is that's plus or minus on the outside of the absolute value signs first. Okay, let's do this problem. Hopefully you already got this right. So I have 4t minus 8 equals 20. That's one thing I'm going to solve, but I'm also going to solve 4t minus 8 equals -20. So the absolute value signs say to you, you're going to have to do 2 problems. You're going to need 2 answers. So here I'm going to finish solving this. What do you think? Should I get Apple TV? And here. 12, right? Divide by 4. All right, there's 2 answers. It actually asks you to graph it. If you do that, it's just super easy. You're just going to put a dot where -3 is and a dot where 7 is. That's all. All right. Let me know what you have problems with on that.